caterer smiled at me like I was some kind of saint. "Your sacrifice is so beautiful," she said, arranging white roses worth more than most people's cars. "Giving up your grandmother's house so your sister could have this perfect day? That's real sisterly love." I stood there holding a champagne flute I hadn't asked for, wearing a dress I'd bought with my own money, watching strangers spend $120,000 of what should have been my inheritance. The house where I'd learned to walk, where Grandma taught me to make her famous apple pie, where I'd planned to raise my own children someday, sold like a piece of furniture to fund this circus. Patricia floated past in her $12,000 dress, kissing the cheek of her politician husband-to-be, while my parents beamed like they'd just brokered world peace. None of them had bothered to ask me. Hell, none of them had even bothered to tell me. My name is Susanna. I'm 27, and I've decided they've taken enough from me. If you believe silence can speak louder than words, subscribe to Revenge with Suzi. It helps me reach more people and keeps me going to bring you more stories like this. And tell me in the comments, would you have done anything differently? I manage social media campaigns for small businesses. Nothing glamorous, but it pays my bills and gives me freedom. Real freedom. The kind my sister never learned to appreciate because someone always caught her when she fell. 2 weeks before Patricia's engagement party, I was at Mom's kitchen table reviewing contracts on my laptop when she hung up the phone and sighed dramatically. "The wedding planner says we need another $40,000 for the venue upgrade Patricia wants. That beachfront location she saw on Pinterest." "That's a lot of money," I said, not looking up from my screen. "Well, we'll manage." "We always do." Mom's voice carried that familiar tone, the one that meant someone else would pay the price. "Your grandmother's house has been sitting empty anyway. It's time to let it go." My fingers froze over the keyboard. "What do you mean, let it go?" "Oh, sweetheart. Don't be dramatic. It's just a house. Patricia's wedding only happens once." She was already rummaging through the refrigerator, dismissing me like I was 5 years old asking about Santa Claus. "Besides, you're doing so well with your little computer business. You don't need our help anymore." Little computer business. Like the $50,000 I'd made last quarter was pocket change. I closed my laptop slowly. "Mom, you promised me that house when Grandma died. You said Patricia would get this one and I'd get Grandma's. You said that was fair." She turned around with that patient smile I'd learned to hate. The one that meant I was being unreasonable again. "Oh, honey, that was just talk. We never put anything in writing. And Patricia needs this more than you do right now. She's starting a new life." What was I starting? A joke? I didn't say another word. I just watched her, really watched her, as she went back to planning a party that would cost more than most people's houses. I noticed how she avoided my eyes, how her hands shook slightly as she pretended to be busy. She knew exactly what she was taking from me, and she was doing it anyway. That night, I drove to Grandma's house and sat in my car outside the white picket fence. The for sale sign was already up. "Sold" stamped across it in red letters like a death certificate. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there in the silence, feeling something inside me shift and settle into a new position. Something that had been soft was hardening into stone. Growing up, there were always 2 sets of rules in our house. Patricia's rules and everyone else's. When Patricia wanted dance lessons, Mom found the money. When I wanted art classes, suddenly we were tightening the belt. When Patricia crashed Dad's car at 16, they bought her a newer one within the week. When I asked to borrow it for prom, I was told I needed to learn responsibility and should take the bus. "Patricia's more delicate," Mom would say whenever I pointed out the obvious favoritism. "She needs more support. You've always been the strong one, Susanna. You can handle anything." Funny how being strong always translated to getting less of everything that mattered. I remember the Christmas I was 12 and Patricia was 8. I'd saved my allowance for months to buy Mom a pearl bracelet I'd seen her admire at the jewelry store. $23. A fortune for a kid. Patricia threw a fit because she didn't have a gift for Mom, so my parents took her shopping that same day and let her put her name on an expensive perfume set. When Mom opened our presents, she gushed over Patricia's thoughtfulness and gave me a distracted thank you for the bracelet. Later, I found it in a drawer, still in its box, while the perfume sat proudly on her dresser. "Patricia just has such a good eye for these things," Mom had told her sister that day. "She's going to be so successful in business someday." Business. Patricia couldn't balance a checkbook, but she had good taste in spending other people's money. Last year, Mom and Dad gave Patricia $30,000 to start her consulting company, which consisted of Patricia making inspirational posts on Instagram while burning through their savings. When it folded after 10 months, there were no lectures about responsibility or learning from mistakes, just Dad muttering about bad timing and tough markets. When Patricia started dating the city councilman 3 months later, Mom lit up like a Christmas tree. Finally, someone who appreciates her potential. Her potential for what, exactly? Marrying well? But I was learning something too. I was learning to pay attention to what people did when they thought nobody was watching. I was learning that love, in my family, had always been conditional on being useful or impressive. And I was learning that being invisible had its advantages. The real confirmation came from Cousin Beth, who called me while I was grocery shopping on a Tuesday afternoon. "I heard about the house sale," she said without preamble. "Mom told me at lunch today. She said your parents are so generous, giving up your grandmother's place so Patricia can have her dream wedding." I stopped pushing my cart, right there in the cereal aisle. "What exactly did Aunt Linda say?" "That it was so sweet how you offered to give up your inheritance so Patricia could marry into the Morrison family. You know, since he's running for mayor next year and all." "She said you told your parents that family comes first." The boxes of cornflakes blurred in front of me. "I offered?" "Yeah, she said." "Oh." Beth's voice changed. "Oh, honey, you didn't know they were telling people that, did you?" I stood there holding my phone, listening to the grocery store's Muzak version of Yesterday, while my family's lies spread through our small town like wildfire. Not only had they stolen my inheritance, they'd turned me into the saint who'd volunteered to give it up. "Beth, I need to ask you something, and I need you to tell me the truth. Did Patricia know? When they told this story about me being so generous? Was she there?" Long pause. "Susanna, was she there?" "She was sitting right next to your mom. She even added some details about how grateful she was for your sacrifice. She said she knew you'd always been the selfless one." I hung up without saying goodbye. I left my cart in the cereal aisle and walked out to my car, where I sat in the parking lot for 20 minutes. Not moving, not thinking, just letting the truth sink in. Patricia knew. She'd always known. She knew where the money was coming from, and she'd helped them craft the lie that made me complicit in my own robbery. While I was mourning Grandma's house, she was spinning fairy tales about my generosity. That evening, I opened my laptop and started a new document. At the top, I typed, "Things to remember." Then I wrote down everything. Every conversation, every lie, every person who'd heard their story. I wasn't planning anything yet. I was just keeping track. Because if there's one thing I'd learned in my business, it's that information is power. And I was tired of being powerless. The wedding was everything Patricia had dreamed of, and everything I'd nightmared about. Ice sculptures that cost more than my car payment. Flowers flown in from some exotic location that I'm sure was very important to people who cared about such things. A 7-course meal that the wedding planner kept calling an experience rather than dinner. I watched 300 guests I barely knew eat food paid for with my childhood memories. Patricia looked stunning. I'll give her that. Her dress alone could have funded a small startup, and she wore it like she was born to it. During her maid of honor speech, she made sure to mention how blessed she felt to have such a supportive family. "My sister Susanna has always been my inspiration," she said, raising her champagne glass toward me. "She taught me that sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is helping them reach for their dreams." The crowd swooned and raised their glasses in my direction. I smiled and nodded, playing my assigned role in their carefully crafted narrative. But I was doing math in my head. The flowers on each table cost more than most people spent on groceries in a month. The wedding cake, a 4-tier monstrosity that looked like it belonged in a museum, could have covered 6 months of mortgage payments on Grandma's house. Patricia's new father-in-law, the judge, made a speech about family values and supporting our young people's dreams. He had no idea he was praising parents who'd stolen from one daughter to buy another's social advancement. During the dancing, Mom pulled me aside. "Isn't this wonderful? Patricia looks so happy. And just think, when Richard becomes mayor, she'll be the perfect wife for him. This wedding is really an investment in all our futures." "An investment made with my inheritance? You must be so proud," added Mrs. Henderson from down the street, appearing beside us with a glass of champagne that cost more per sip than most people's lunch. "Patricia told me you practically insisted they use your grandmother's house money for this. Such sisterly love." I smiled until my cheeks ached. I'm full of surprises. Later, during the bouquet toss, I stood at the back of the crowd of single women and watched Patricia throw her roses into the air like she was dispensing blessings. Some young cousin caught it and squealed with delight. I thought about Grandma's rose garden, the one that came with the house they'd sold. The roses she'd planted when she was newlywed, that had bloomed every spring for 43 years. They'd probably be plowed under by now, replaced with something modern and efficient. That's when I decided I was done being efficient for other people. 3 days after the wedding, Dad called me. "Susanna, honey, we need your help with something. Patricia and Richard are moving into their new place next week, and we thought maybe you could help coordinate the move. You're so organized, and you know how Patricia gets overwhelmed with details." I was sitting at my desk, reviewing client analytics, and I didn't stop typing. "What kind of help? Oh, you know. Maybe contact the movers, set up the utilities transfers, handle the change of address forms. The usual stuff you're so good at. Patricia's got that charity luncheon for Richard's campaign, and she's just swamped. The usual stuff I'm so good at, like being taken for granted. Dad, I'm actually pretty busy with work right now. Maybe Patricia should handle her own move." Silence. Then, "Susanna, that doesn't sound like you. We're family. We help each other." "Right. We help each other. Like when you helped me keep Grandma's house?" Another silence, longer this time. "Sweetheart, I thought we'd moved past this. Patricia's wedding was beautiful, wasn't it? Everyone had such a wonderful time, and you looked lovely in that blue dress." He was doing it again. Redirecting, minimizing, making it about anything except what they'd done to me. "Dad, I need to get back to work. Patricia's a grown woman. She can figure out her own utilities." I hung up before he could respond. An hour later, Mom called. Then Patricia, then Mom again. I let them all go to voicemail. That weekend, when they expected me to show up for our usual Sunday dinner, I didn't. I stayed home, organized my closet, and enjoyed the silence. Monday morning brought another call from Dad. "Susanna, your mother is worried sick. You missed dinner, you're not returning calls. This isn't like you. Maybe this is exactly like me, and you just never paid attention. Now you're being dramatic. Look, if this is still about the house, Dad, it's not about the house. It's about the fact that you sold my inheritance without telling me, lied to the whole town about it, and then expected me to keep playing happy family. It's about the fact that you think I'm so pathetic that I should be grateful to be robbed. Nobody robbed anybody. We made a decision about our property." I hung up on him too. That afternoon, I changed my phone number. I kept the old one active, but forwarded it to voicemail only. If they had something important to say, they could leave a message. They left 17 messages the first day. I listened to exactly 0 of them. For the first time in my adult life, my phone wasn't ringing with family emergencies that somehow always required my time, my car, my money, or my organizational skills. The silence was beautiful. 2 months later, the silence broke. Patricia's marriage was falling apart. I learned this not from my family. I was still routing their calls to voicemail, but from Beth, who called my new number with updates I hadn't asked for. Richard caught her using campaign funds to pay for spa treatments and shopping trips. Apparently, she'd been forging his signature on checks. The party's threatening to drop him from the mayoral race. I was updating a client's Instagram strategy when Beth called, and I kept working while she talked. "Your parents are frantic. Patricia's talking about divorce already, and you know what that means for someone in Richard's position. They need damage control, and they need it fast. Sounds complicated. Susanna, they're asking for you." I stopped typing. "What? Your mom called mine this morning crying. She said they need you to come home, that you're the only one who knows how to handle crisis situations. She said Patricia's hysterical and your dad's blood pressure is through the roof. Then they should call a therapist and a cardiologist. She said they're sorry about the house thing. She said they realize now that they should have handled it differently. Should have handled it differently, not, we were wrong. Not, we stole from you. Not, we lied about you to the entire town. They should have handled it differently. Beth, can I ask you something? In all the years you've known me, when have I ever not shown up when my family needed me? Never. You always, oh, right. I always show up. I always handle things. I always make it okay. And what have I gotten in return?" She was quiet for a long time. "What are you going to do?" "Nothing." "Nothing?" "Absolutely nothing. They created this mess without consulting me. They can solve it the same way." That night, Dad called my new number. I have no idea how he got it. I answered because I was curious what emergency would drive him to track down information I hadn't given him. "Susanna, thank God. We need you to come home. Patricia's in real trouble and we don't know how to help her. Dad, I'm sure you'll figure something out. You managed to sell a house and plan a wedding without my input. Crisis management should be easy. This is different. This is serious. Was stealing my inheritance not serious? We didn't steal. Look, can we please not do this now? Patricia needs our support. Patricia needs to learn that actions have consequences. It's a lesson I'm still working on myself. Susanna, please. You're our problem solver. You always know what to do. I do know what to do. I'm doing it right now. I'm staying right here, living my quiet life, not cleaning up messes I didn't make. The silence stretched so long I thought he might have hung up. Finally, I don't understand what's happened to you. Nothing happened to me, Dad. I just stopped happening to you. I hung up and turned off my phone. 6 months later, I got a letter. Not a call, not a text, not a voicemail. An actual handwritten letter from Mom delivered to my apartment by certified mail. She'd found my address somehow. Probably hired someone or asked one of their friends to look it up. The envelope was cream-colored, expensive-looking. The kind she used for formal invitations. Inside, 3 pages of careful handwriting. An apology of sorts. An explanation of how they'd made mistakes during a stressful time. How they missed their daughter and wanted to rebuild their relationship. Patricia was divorced now. Richard had won his election but dropped her like a hot potato once the financial scandal broke. She was living back home, apparently, sleeping in her childhood bedroom, while lawyers sorted out the mess she'd made of her brief marriage. Mom's letter was full of words like healing and forgiveness and moving forward together. She mentioned how quiet Sunday dinners had become, how strange it felt not to call me when things went wrong. She signed it, "All our love, Mom and Dad." I read it twice, then put it in my filing cabinet under Things to Remember. I didn't respond. 3 weeks later, another letter. This one shorter, more desperate. Dad's handwriting this time, less careful, more rushed. "Susanna, your mother cries every day. Patricia is seeing a therapist for depression. We know we hurt you, but you're hurting us too. When does this end?" I filed that one too. The third letter came from Patricia herself. 2 pages of rambling, tear-stained confession. How she'd always known I was the stronger one. How she'd gotten used to me fixing things and had never learned to fix them herself. How she was sorry for everything. She didn't specifically mention the house. She didn't specifically mention the lies. But she mentioned being sorry for everything, which I suppose was meant to cover it. At the bottom, she'd written, "I need my big sister back." I sat at my kitchen table holding her letter, looking out at my small balcony garden. I'd bought some rose bushes after moving to this apartment. Nothing fancy, just simple red roses that bloomed reliably and didn't require much fuss. They were beautiful in their quiet way. I could call them back. I could drive over there and walk into that familiar chaos and everything would go back to the way it was. They'd be grateful at first and careful, and I'd be the problem solver again. Patricia would find new ways to mess up her life, and they'd call me to help. Mom would hint that I should be more understanding, more forgiving, more helpful. Dad would assume I'd handle whatever needed handling because that's what I did. And in 10 years, when they needed money for something else they considered more important than my peace of mind, they'd take it. Because I'd have taught them that I always forgave, always understood, always came back. I tore up Patricia's letter and threw it away. Then I watered my roses and made myself dinner for one. The silence in my apartment wasn't empty anymore. It was full of possibilities they'd never think to steal from me. I stayed quiet. They noticed eventually. But by then, I'd learned that quiet doesn't mean weak. It just means I finally had something worth protecting.